In this video, I will be reading from material I wrote in the early 1990s concerning the fifth Lord. This is something that Thoth presented to me at the time that I felt was obviously a deep topic, and he was giving me only a certain amount of it. Probably because the world wasn't ready for it yet, I wasn't ready for it yet, and it also is very portending of future events in many ways, but it's all somewhat hidden from the conscious mind. So whenever he brought this topic forward and all the attendant aspects of it, I felt he was delivering a message that would be something to awaken people on certain levels in the future. It's not a topic that can be dissected mentally. It is something that has trigger words within it, I feel, for the mind to allow the being to take it in on a more subconscious level. Yet it also has some striking understanding in it of things that are more universal in scope and yet affect us on a very much day-to-day basis in how we live our lives. So all of these things are kind of mixed up together. I have never wanted to really put the in-depth material out on this topic because, other than, it was put into my original writings, but I didn't want to go back to it and place it in video format because I just felt it was just too complex. Or maybe complex is not the right word. I felt it was too obscure in some ways. But Thoth is prompting me to do this now. As I am speaking at this moment, it is August 28th, 2021. We are now in the midst of the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan. Since the Fifth Lord topic focuses on the Middle East, and yet it includes the entire scope of the destiny of planet Earth, I feel that is probably why Thoth was prompting me to do it at this time. So now, let us begin. From a Thoth transmission of the early 1990s, speaking about an aspect of the universal divine feminine. Thus, we may see the mother of the pearl, amethystine, as the fourth witness, the goddess aspect creating the last corner of the foursquare foundation stone of the temple. She who is bearer of the foundation stars surely is enthroned upon the seat of the inner temple of the greater mystery. It is only through such divine consecration that the three other witnesses are able to manifest their vehicles of glory, for they are of the universes as man is of the universes, within the field of Metatron, from which all dynamic creative power is streamed. I speak here not of the personalities, but of the archetypal fields engendered through their representation within this aurora consciousness. In any temple construct, her presence would be defined within these parameters, regardless of the personalities, archetypes of the other three positions. Her essentiality is supersensualized within the Ormid Cube of Stars, for she is the quintessence of absolute light, from whence the angels take their flight. From her brow is released the stargate of transfiguration, through which the first Lord, the universal Christos, incarnated in the Master Yeshua or Jesus, did pass as he ascended his star body into the 8th sphere after his resurrection. So, as the mother of the pearl opens the Ormid using the holographic imprints of star patterns within the crystal consciousness of the lotus dwellers, these impresses will begin to redeem the light of the entire star programming within the earth. This will be finalized with the Noachane as they open their bodies and allow their micro-star forms to receive the greater star fields of the universe. Now I must pause here. I know you're going, what are the lotus dwellers? What is Noachane? The situation with all of my work over these over 50 years is it's so integrated. One thing builds upon another. So it's difficult to jump into the middle and read a transmission or listen to one that is referring to things that might have been written 20 years previously. So I don't want to go into too much detail because I can't make this video hours and hours long. But the lotus dwellers is referring to the crystal skulls of the dweller beings, as Thoth calls them, of which he is one, those beings on the earth and some not on the earth but working with the earth, who left their impresses within these crystal skulls for future generations. This is a large topic, and I'm not going to go into it here, but that is what he's referring to, the crystal consciousness of the lotus dwellers. These impresses will begin to redeem the light of the entire star programming within the earth. And this will be finalized with the Noachane. The Noachane are these mysterious, to me, beings that dwell in some cavern areas of the earth, not in the central earth or the hollow earth. And they are very sacred beings, is all I can say. They actually ingest starlight we all do to some extent, but in a very direct and dynamic way. And they do this for the planet. Again, a long topic. So essentially, what is being stated here is that the planet itself goes through this process of ingesting starlight. These signals that have information for the greater grid of being, the holograph that we all live in, the hologram. And so the planet is constantly going through this process of receiving this information and ingesting it. And you might call the Noachane as some of their ingesting beings that help them to ingest this frequency. Again, the crystal skulls are another part of this principle because they allow this information to become crystallized in the skulls of our being through their crystallization. Also spoken of here is the mother of pearl opening the Ormid, using the holographic imprints of star patterns. So, what is the Ormid? Within the Ormid Cube of Stars. I have mentioned this on at least one other video I've done recently about the Ormid Cube of Stars versus the, not really versus, but as a counterpoint to the Black Cube of Mecca, which actually is a representation of the Black Cube of the universal continuum. So this is a topic that's been covered to some extent before, but basically it is a balanced system of cubic properties of the universe, sort of a yin-yang situation, and it directly feeds into the cyclic karma of the planet and the cyclic grace of the planet. Or I want to correct that, not the cyclic grace, but the updwelling grace. So we have the cyclic karma represented in the cube the dark cube, and the updwelling grace represented in the cube of stars. And now I return to my 1991 article that I was reading from, and here I am quoting from The Keys of Enoch by J.J. Hertog, as he writes of the black cube in Mecca. Just as our living universe has a pyramid of light in the central matrix for star evolution between the universes of intelligence, so also the anti-universe has its matrix of dark cubic space, which is the violation of the living light exemplified in the Kaaba, the black cube in Mecca. So we see in the Kaaba the key geometries of the anti-power of life, the anti-Christos and the anti-Zohar. And I saw the nations engaged in physical destruction, entropy, war, and violence, worshiping and bowing down to the negation of star energy. And I also saw the nations of light and love exalting the pyramid of light, which is the sign for continuity in the image and similitude for the higher illuminaries. Enoch took me into the Middle East. He told me that the Kaaba, the black cube, was a macro-state crystalline structure sensitive to the particles of star limitation and nuclear tracings. The sons of light, the Benai Or, have established a light pyramid functioning on this end of the light spectrum in relationship to the Pleiades and Orion. Conversely, the black cube functions with Alpha Draconis for the children of darkness. To save the peoples of the world who are under the energies of the black cube is to bring them the Torah Or, God's program of light. To save the star system intelligence from the negative entropy is to bring the scriptures of light from Orion and the Pleiades, to teach the people of the world the love of God, the love of the Son, the love of the Shekinah, the Holy Spirit. That's the end of the quotations. Before I continue with the article, just briefly, The Keys of Enoch is not something I have ever really studied. The book was given to me in the 1970s by a friend who had read some of my material and said, "Wow, this really sounds like what you're writing." So he gifted me with this book. I'd never heard of Hertog or his Keys of Enoch book before. And I was struck by how much there was of a similar nature, different in many regards as to the focus, but there was a similar baseline that Hertog was bringing forth and that I was through Thoth. So I keep that book and I simply open it when Thoth directs me to, or he will say, "Look this up," and I will look it up in the Keys of Enoch, usually after I've written something, and it verifies that in some way. So this is pretty much what happened here. I had already been writing about this material, and then I was guided to look this up, and here it was. I do continue now in my article, basically stating something of the effect which I just said here, and then I say, Hertog's vision and interpretation of the Kaaba would seem to follow Thoth's view as an antithesis of the outstreaming of the Ormid, and Hertog does mention the Shekinah, but he defines this as the Holy Spirit, a Judeo-Christian interpretation, which, while correct in one dimension, does not offer the full gnosis of its true form, that of the great feminine seen in the mother of pearl. Within the Ormid, as these star fields progress through the streaming of the stag, the value of the black cube of Mecca will decrease. To pause a moment, the streaming of the stag is one of the 7 miracles of light, or it's a representation of that, and that's a whole other topic again, so not going there. Thoth compares the Kaaba to Gilgamesh's heavy star. In Temple Doors issue 290, I write about it, and I'm quoting from some ancient text that is an historical document. I tried to lift it, but it was too heavy for me. The land of Uruk was gathered around it. While heroes kissed its feet, I put my forehead firmly against it, and they assisted me. I lifted it up and carried it to thee. The last line of Gilgamesh's star dream, I lifted it up and carried it to thee, refers to his mother, who, if seen with the eye of divine symbolism, is the mother of the pearl. For Gilgamesh lifts up the star and carries it to her. In this view, the fifth lord, who in this instance is represented by Gilgamesh, is seen as the dynamic becoming one with the Ormid, whose stars are rushing outward from the center of darkness to the center of light. The fifth lord Thoth defines as an entity of multi-consciousness of the fifth power or resolution within the whole continuum of the Zarathustrian lords. The Zarathustrian lords can integrate with souls, but are of themselves like a single light reflected in a series of mirrors. I cannot give you the total number of the Zarathustrian lords, as this, like the particle versus the wave, would immediately be changed by such scrutiny. The number of individualizations within the Zarathustrian lords is determined by the mirrors set before the light. Each referencing point creates a new mirror. As the fifth lord is once again empowered within the earth, there will follow a breaking up of ancient dead matter collected on the astral levels of earth, as the Zarathustrian mandate is activated through this lord or fifth power. The dead matter can be seen as black, hard, encrusted sediment, obstructing light passage and slowing down the spirit-to-matter transfers of the planet. A fifth power resolution, a resolving power or dynamic of solvents, enters into a mounting, whirling circle embodied in a revolution of a cycle of being to break down the condensed form of entropy, i.e. the black cube, obstructing the light passage. This lifts up the grail factor, the light mathematics of the new solvent or spring of spiritual fecundity, as seen in Gilgamesh's black cube / star, which was in physical form a fragment of Lucifer's crown, the grail lapis. This grail lapis is part of a much larger picture of sacred stones, many of them from the same rock, and one would be the Chintamani stone. It is thusly seen, then, as both the anti-star and the Christos star. Within its dark side, the trapped energies of Sirius are contained, yet will be transfigured as its light half engages in the full spectrum of the Metatron, creating a whole light spectrum. Once the fifth power breaks through the force field of the dark cube, and the Ormid is allowed its full value throughout the crystalline earth. This rising, whirling fire can also be revealed as the staff of Osiris / Gilgamesh, the dragon's teeth struck into the ground. Without the dynamic contact of spirit to matter, the black cube cannot realize its light value, i.e. the Ormid. And now I continue to a vision, an experience which I had. And this experience is not meant to reflect that I personally did all these things. My soul, myself, my incarnated vision, Thoth allowed or brought in to a connection with this dynamic so that I could live it as if I were actually the instigator of it. Since we are all part of the same whole cloth in the universe, the quantum field, and all it entails, one can step into a spring and drink from it and thereby experience the condition of being the spring, just as God is within us. That doesn't mean we are a god. So this is how this vision unfolded to me and why. Thoth literally brought me into an initiation of spirit with this particular paradigm. Here is the vision experience as I wrote about it in 1990. The logos of the fifth lord, a gold cartouche, was etherically placed around my neck, as Thoth told me that this was the logos of the fifth lord, whose power came through the archetype and emissary of Osiris. I was told by Thoth that this fifth lord was returning, and when I asked how, he said, through his seed. Then I was told to open several books, one of which was Serpent in the Sky, The High Wisdom of Ancient Egypt by John Anthony West. I opened it to a part of the book I had not yet read, although I have owned this book for several years. On that page, I read about a chamber in the Temple of Luxor in Egypt. This temple was built to correlate with the initiation centers of the human body. The chamber mentioned on the page I opened was called the Holy of Holies. To quote from this page, the sanctuary Schwaller de Lubitz calls the Holy of Holies may be regarded as a germ or seed whose dimensions, proportions, and symbolism contain in resume the finished product. The west wall of this sanctuary contained statues of kings. Measuring these kings, Schwaller de Lubitz found them gradually increasing in size. Each king measured exactly 72 digits, the digits being fractions of the different values of cubit, each of which is founded upon exact geodesic considerations. The difference between them is determined by the degree of latitude to which the measure pertains. Unquote. Now I say, in this information, we find the 5 lords or kings in the chamber of the seed. They are, incidentally, 5 statues. I didn't mention that here. The 72 is the number of petals, i.e. masters, upon the rose mystica. This is another formula of Thoth's, a dynamic that has to do with the divine feminine, and also the unfolding of the sacred measure within the Imstra molecule, the sacred atom of humanity that brings us into the pure gem vessel of the new earth. It was through this chamber that I consequently entered the interdimensional realm in which Osiris gave me his staff with which to pierce the plane of Iraq. I know this is not the end of the connection with the fifth lord. After the bull-lion statue was split in two. Now this is a part of the story that has not been mentioned in my discourse here before, but I saw a statue that was split in two, and it was a bull-lion kind of morphic being. So after the statue was split in two, I saw a princely being looking exquisite in satin robes and turban. He was distinctly Arabic. I was told that this was one eminence of the fifth lord, the one which was now free to act within the destiny of Iraq. Thus the fifth lord is not just Osiris. It is a multifaceted being, or perhaps consciousness beyond entity form, who has the ability to outpicture within the various culture frames or racial memories. Upon awakening on the morning of September 26, 1990, I found this sentence planted firmly in my mind. Under the Lake of Lakes, near the plain of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is the Babylonian Noah. Looking in the Britannica, I found that ancient Babylonia occupied southern Mesopotamia between the Tigris and Euphrates River, modern southern Iraq from around Baghdad to the Persian Gulf. Now I ask Thoth, did I plant the staff of Osiris on the Lake of Lakes? To which Thoth replies, It is upon this sacred ground that the holy staff of the fifth Lord, as issued through Osiris, was thrust into the earth by Gilgamesh, another embodiment of the fifth Lord. So you accomplish this etherically by your reenactment, thereby recreating the moment of the crystallic grid beneath the lake of lakes. Now we can see then that although the fifth Lord is not a person or persons, as the Zarathustrian lords aren't, this eminence can enter a being, a person, an incarnation, or perhaps can manifest as one for an individual purpose, a focus, or a promised result. Also of interest in regard to my question as to how the fifth Lord would return, the answer being given through his seed, we find in Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall, it states, "The Holy Grail may also be the seed pod, so frequently employed in the ancient mysteries as an emblem of germination and resurrection, and if the cup-like shape of the grail be derived from the flower, it signifies the regeneration and spiritualization of the generative forces in man." Unquote. After receiving the information from Thoth on the fifth Lord, Osiris, and Gilgamesh, I was guided to open a book entitled The Sirius Mystery by Robert K. Temple. Again, I hadn't read what I'm going to read to you here at the time. My eyes fell on a paragraph that astounded me, excerpts of which are: in the Epic of Gilgamesh, a dream of Gilgamesh is described when he encounters a heavy star that cannot be lifted despite immense effort. The star descends from heaven to him, as is described as connected with Anu, who is god of heaven. Gilgamesh is drawn to this heavy star irresistibly, in a manner described in a way that seemed to hint at a kind of gravitational attraction. The Epic of Gilgamesh refers to the essence of Anu, possessed by the star. The word rendered as essence is used elsewhere in medical contexts, referring to concentration, essence, an intimation of superdense matter. This concentrated star essence of Anu was too heavy for Gilgamesh to lift in his dream. I also read on that same page that Anu was an Egyptian name, or An, out of the word Anu, was an Egyptian name for Osiris. When I then flipped to the previous page, I find, and Gilgamesh also put his teeth in the ground. Gilgamesh somehow derives strength from putting his teeth into the ground. This is somewhat like Jason of the Argonauts. Thoth said that Gilgamesh thrust the staff of the fifth Lord into the ground in the dry lake bed, directly over the shard of the meteorite, the same place where I, etherically, was led to enter the staff of Osiris. This meteorite was a slag of a great explosion of worlds, molten remains of these worlds. Certainly such remains would be highly condensed. Even a small fragment could be greatly magnetized and very heavy. A translation for the star dream is given out of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Quote, Gilgamesh arose to reveal the dream, saying to his mother, "My mother, last night I felt happy and walked among the heroes. There appeared stars in the heavens. The hosts of heaven fell down toward me. I tried to lift it, but could not move it. I tried to move it, but could not move it. The land of Uruk was gathered around it. While the heroes kissed its feet, I put my forehead firmly against it, and they assisted me. I lifted it up and carried it to thee." Unquote. Another interesting passage pertains to this epic. And again, quote, "The Ekur, the lapis lazuli house, the lofty dwelling place, awe-inspiring. Its awe and dread are next to heaven. Its shadow is spread over all the lands. Its loftiness reaches heaven's heart." From the Sirius mystery, the Egyptian word Kem also has the meanings shrine, holy of holies, sanctuary, and little small. Also he whose name is unknown, i.e. God, also God of procreation and generative power. In Wallace Budge, we also read excerpts of Egyptian texts speaking of holy emanations proceeding from Sirius and Orion, which vivify gods, men, cattle, and creeping things, both gods and men, and are pouring out of the seed of the soul. Of course, the Dogon tribe maintain the same thing in almost precisely the same terms. To them, the seed, which energizes the world, pours forth from the Sirius system. End of quotes. In these quotations, a distinct relationship is formed with Thoth's statement to me that the fifth Lord was coming again to earth through his, Osiris's, seed, and then finding the Holy of Holies chamber in Luxor, representing the generative power to contain the 5 kings, or lords. In several previous issues of the Source Temple Doors, Sirius has been revealed as not only one of the 3 in the trinity of stars, Orion, Ceres, and the Pleiades, but as the recalibrated stargate or balance point that Lucifer dislodged his war in heaven. Therefore, Sirius contains trapped energies from this battle. It would thus not be stretching things to perceive Gilgamesh's heavy star, the one in the same meteorite shard expelled from heaven's gate, as a piece of the star Sirius, or what became of Sirius. In writing the Sirius mystery, Mr. Temple is focusing on presenting historical correlations, testimony, and supposition that beings from the star Sirius came to Earth in ages past, greatly influencing ancient cultures. This is most certainly true. However, some of the facts he presents to support this focus reveal to me, based on the recent information from Thoth, much more than a visitation from another world, of which there have been many, especially from Sirius, Orion, and the Pleiades. In Dictionary of All Myths and Scriptures is also found Osiris. Gaskill defines this archetype as, quote, a symbol of the first logos, the higher self, unquote. He also states that Osiris was the first of 5 gods. Thoth called Osiris the 5th Lord, and told me that the star of Isis, that is the organization I had when I wrote this, was being given his logos. Upon reading Gaskill's interpretation, I asked Thoth to reconcile the 2 explanations, if indeed there is a reconciliation. First, he defines for me the difference between the Logos, the Lord, and the God. The Logos is the word, the definition of being that is given forth. Osiris, as the first syllable of creation, is the first Logos. In this context, Osiris is one of the lords, or multi-entities of Zarathustra. He is also, in mythological importance, a god, or creating factor, i.e., that which brings forth the Logos. He is a 5th Lord because as the first Logos, so he incorporates all the gods, or as Gaskill defines it, 5 planes of manifestation. As a 5th principle of the Zarathustrian being, he is given the task of reuniting these 5 planes in one harmonic. Christ is the first Lord, who is the consummation of these 5 plane realities as the Logos, not first, second, or third, but the supreme Logos of all creation. He is the first Lord as he precedes all being into matter. The danger in trying to take this all in is that one loses the original consciousness intended, which is the reorganization of matter into a light-engendered harmony with spirit. And so now, let us time travel back into the future being our present. nothing I could have conceived of when I received this message in 1990 and 1991. We are faced not only with a situation in Afghanistan, we're looking at the entire picture of how the Middle East shapes the perceptions, the energies, the karma of the planet. This is not a make-wrong. Everything that is going on in the Middle East, good, bad, and in between, is a representation, a reflection of everything that is going on in the consciousness, the mass consciousness of our world. It is positioned there because of the unique energy dynamic between the cube of stars and the dark cube, which is partly embedded within the Kaaba of Mecca. The Kaaba is not a negative, bad cube, okay? It's not that. Even though there was inference to that in what Hertog said, if that is what he was inferring, I would disagree. From the Thothic perspective, it is a lesson in consciousness and how humanity responds to that lesson, how it moves forward or backward from the position of receiving the message. I would say at this time we've not received the message very well, and I say we as the entire planet. So to focus on a particular region and put blame on that region is definitely not the intention that we should pursue, but to understand its position in the whole picture of things, the whole dynamic. So what about the fifth Lord? Well, this is some kind of a power, an insertion of principle, a divine law, a power emanating from the divine law, under the Zarathustrian mandate. Now, the two mandates that Thoth has spoken about in all these years has been the mandate of the violet flame issuing from the seat of Lord Michael, and the Zarathustrian mandate. The Zarathustrian mandate is really kind of a sub-mandate under the violet flame, because the violet flame is one of a universal perspective, a universal property that focuses on Earth at this time, while the Zarathustrian mandate comes out of the field of what was generated in consciousness by the entity Zarathustra, later to incarnate as Zoroaster. The greater design that he connected to, that his incarnation, his soul embedded within, just as there was a real physical Osiris, and he embedded into this greater field of consciousness. So Thoth is using the term, his choice, the Zarathustrian mandate, because that's where it began to be propagated into humanity. And that mandate stipulates that there will be a reckoning of forces within the paradigm of the Ormid Cube of Stars and the dark cube of the Kaaba. So that is what is updwelling at this time. It's done so before. When I wrote this material, we were in the Persian Gulf War. And now, here we are in the circumstance that we are in the Middle East as a whole. So one of the things we can see from all of this, that I believe is why Thoth wanted me to speak it, to read this to you from the past, is that now is the time for the fifth Lord to take action, for that power to be a sweeping program of light. How that's going to manifest, I cannot say. I don't know. I do feel that it's going to be a bumpy ride, as Betty Davis said in that movie. It's going to be a bumpy ride. And I don't make light of it because obviously this is a very serious situation. All of these things are. But if we take them into the context of how they relate to the divine human experience, we must see that all the shards that have from the shattered crystal that are piercing our flesh must be removed. That's the way Thoth presents it to me in this moment. And as that happens, the crucible of much of that is going to be the Middle East.